Hi everyone, this is Dragon GGY and this is the Operator Hindsight for Vulpisfoglia. Let's get to it. Vulpisfoglia is a 6-star pioneer in the Vanguard class. Trait of the Archetype blocks 2 enemies, which isn't saying anything. The Archetype is a block 2 attack 1 build, balancing between the offensive and defensive ends. If you look across the board, they are also the only block 2 archetype in Vanguard, with their DP being on the expensive end at 14 standard, which becomes a huge factor later on. If you haven't realized, this is actually the first time that we get to talk about a Vanguard in this series. The last 6-star Vanguard in Arknights was Muses 1.5 years ago. Discussing Vanguards is unlike any other classes. Their core function revolves around generating DP, which is a foundation to the game. And so far, this function has been strictly exclusive to this class. It's unlike how medics aren't the only ones who can heal. Buffs and debuffs are also commonly found outside of supporters. Only Vanguards produce DP, so the ability to effectively generate DP is the key of the discussion. Here's an overview of the difference between the 5 Vanguard archetypes. Pioneer, where Vulpisfoglia is in, are designed to lane hold while generating DP in the early game, so the block 2 and more rounded build makes sense. They tend to generate DP at a moderate speed. Charges are for pinning down enemies with offensive-oriented kits to help them secure kills, which generates DP, and retreating them refunds all DP with Module X. They don't really generate DP fast, given that they are not gonna take out a bunch of enemies. The powerful part of them is still the effective zero cost if you can retreat them. Next, we have the kinda notorious standard bearers. They are designed to produce DP at a really fast speed while sacrificing the ability to hold down a lane. They have close to 0 offensiveness and are one of the squishiest melee archetypes in the game. Tacticians are utility wizards that comes with a built-in ranged plus melee combo that allows them to manage different scenarios. They are the archetype that has this highest ceiling in Vanguards, and as a trade-off, they tend to have the slowest DP generation out of all. Agents' ability to generate DP is bound to attacking. They have a 35-second redeployment time and a longer range, which allows them to find targets more effectively to do their jobs. And as long as they have something to hit at, they'll have the fastest DP generation in Vanguard. So that's the breakdown. It shouldn't be too hard to find out where they're supposed to be used. And that also leads us to a small meta-analysis. If you've been following the game's evolution over the years, you probably would have felt the progressive decline of Pioneer as an archetype. And in my opinion, there are 3 main reasons for that. Number 1, they're designed for holding the line against early enemies, but the line for early turns more and more vague as you build up more characters. When you're still a newbie, I believe you use Fang, because at the time you'll need everyone in your team to clear the stage. Buying a sniper is not enough, you also need your defender, you also need your casters, etc. just to stay alive. So holding the line while generating DP is very important. But as the key damage dealers or lane holders get built on your account, they may just be able to stabilize the line, essentially skipping that early phase. I'm talking about characters released back in time like Thorns, Blaze, and perhaps most notably Mountain, who costs less than Pioneers and hold a lane like no one else in 5 seconds. If there are enough DP to put them down before the first enemy gets to the objective, you're oftentimes better off deploying them instead. So that leads us to number 2. Stages aren't that intense when they start. The biggest factor that can stop Ling from getting a solo record on the map isn't any stage gimmick. It's a hound that rushes at the objective before you can have 28 DP. So knowing that, the rise of standard bearers or flag bearers is evident. While they can lead to leaks early on, it wouldn't matter if they can deploy and earn UDP for other characters before that even happens. And the release of Bagpipe I wouldn't say a nail in the coffin for Pioneers, but definitely have solidified flag bearers' advantage of generating DP at a way higher rate very early on. And at number 3, for Pioneers themselves, their ability to lane hold and generate DP are both just mediocre. While they are the more reliable ones in Vanguard, they are no match for the actual lane holders. DP generations, like we said, is dominated by standard bearers back then and now also by agents, so as time goes on, they need for their continued presence on field is getting lower and lower. Currently in the game, there are just way too many alternatives to starting the stage than using Pioneers. If it's super easy, you may straight up deploy lane holders. For a more universal approach, players would use Bagpipe plus Standard Bearers, also known as the Flag Pipe combo. And if it really is intense, it would be Bagpipe with multiple Flag Bearers, and you can actually deploy Bagpipe herself or Executors to temporarily hold the line. It will be fast anyways. So with all that said, now let's take a look at Vulpisfoglia's talents. Talent 1, after dealing damage to an enemy for the first time, Vulpisfoglia deals an additional 30% of attack as arch damage whenever she deals damage to this enemy during the next 10 seconds. It's dealt as an additional instance of damage expected, and this effect is indicated by a fox eye mark above the target. The timer for the effect will only start to take down when the damage is successfully dealt, meaning that if she's never able to deal the starting damage, all her subsequent attacks will deal the additional arch damage indefinitely. That's why she gives 2 SP to Stainless's skill 3 turret on every hit. This talent is the key of her damage, or to be precise, the part that gives her an edge over older Pioneers. Pioneers tend to have limited DPH, so being able to do some arch damage would improve their effectiveness, especially against enemies with quite some defense. Unfortunately, this talent mostly works with just skill 3, and it's kind of a shame that it's on a timer, because if the enemy can't be dealt with in one skill use, or when she picks up the enemy during off skill, it's gonna be much harder to kill them afterwards. Talent 2, natural DP regeneration rate plus 10% while on the field. If Vulpisfoglia does not take damage for 4 seconds, recovers 4% of max HP every second, 5% at potential 5. Note that the 10% more DP regen rate is a multiplication, so for normal stages, which regens DP at 1 DP per second, the talent generates 0.1 DP every second. So for example, in a CC map with a minus 75% DP regen rate, this talent will only generate 0.025 DP per second, or 1 DP every 40 seconds. For stages like Annihilation with 0 regen rate, this effect also earns you literally nothing. But still, this is a great addition for Pioneers who are supposed to stay on the field. It would have been better if it was a flat plus 0.1 DP per second though. The current way of how it works makes it much less impactful in advanced content. Also, since you can't really make use of DP until they are at full digit, the talent only nets you something every 10 seconds, so in the short term, similar talents that grant you DP or discount DP may be better, like Texas or Psylocke. The self-recovery part is also great on Pioneer for reducing the early need for external healing and instead prioritizing them for others. It works with the crowd controls in skill 2 and skill 3 pretty well. There are some parts to the talents that could be better, but overall they are pretty essential to Vulpisfoglia's kit with clear design purposes. Next, let's talk about her module. Vulpisfoglia currently has the Pioneer X module. Trade update, gains 8% attack and defense while blocking enemies. Upgrades go to her talent 1, she now deals 10% more attack as arch damage at 40%. Base effect slightly increases her offense and defense, but the effect is conditional. Worst of all, skill 2 and her main skill 3 both have extended ranges and crowd controls that prevent enemies from walking up to her. So of all people that have an X module, this one fits her the least. Upgrades are for some damage, which is fine, just not the most crucial bonus that can make her more viable. 19.6% damage increase to skill 3, and when not blocking drops to 15.2%, so most of the improvements are unfortunately from level 3. I recommend level 3 or not unlocking at all. If you don't really expect much from her damage, I'd recommend waiting for her Vi module that cuts 4 DP from her first deployment, but unfortunately it's not coming in at least 6 months, so the call is on you. Now, you may be wondering why module Y base is that important to this character, so here's another breakdown. When we assess the ability of Vanguards to generate DP early in the stage, we have to consider their own deployment cost, because having a higher DP means it costs them more to buy back their emission. all the previous pioneers have gotten a Y module. We are comparing the more similar skill 3s from Vulpisfoglia, Saga, and Flametail. And without Y module, Vulpisfoglia earns back her own cost barely before the next skill use, which is close to 30 seconds in, and her advantage over Saga only starts to become evident starting from around 90 seconds. If you think about it, the value of DP will slowly go down as the stage progresses, having 30 DP 10 seconds into the stage versus 100 seconds is a whole different story. Generally, DP generated in the first 40 seconds after deployment is the most significant, and Vulpisfoglia's current module X certainly doesn't help with that. Here's a graph of a hypothetical module Y for her, and since she gets all the DP instantly on skill use compared to the progressive gain of Saga and Flametail, she will have a very clear advantage starting from about 35 seconds. That should give you an overall idea. If that future module Y improves the DP regen part to her talent 2 as well, then it would give her some defining advantages. For now, we can only cope. For skill overview, my take is skill 3 much more than skill 2 and skill 1. Wouldn't recommend skill 2 and 1 because skill 3 is really the only skill that plays to the strength of both of her talents. Skill 3 has decent damage, consistent stun interruptions, and good DP efficiency, which honestly does the job of handling early phases well. Skill 2 can combo with other slow providers or use 2 stacks back to back to apply stun CC. Has the highest DP efficiency, but isn't that outstanding in terms of coverage and damage. Skill 1 is AFKable, but demands picking up enemies to generate DP like Siege Skill 2 and is poor in DP efficiency. Speaking of that term, here's a little summary and comparison. DP efficiency refers to the amount of DP that can be generated by a skill in one cycle. The table on the right are some of the commonly used skills and their respective DP efficiency. It doesn't include all the skills, just giving you an overall idea. Agents generally have the highest efficiency provided that they can always land their attacks. Standard bearer skill 1s, also known as support beta or gamma, are also very efficient, found second and third in the table here. Other skills from them, like Elysium skill 2 in number 5, would usually trade efficiency for extra functions, but usually still have higher efficiency than skills from other archetypes. Tacticians, for all the things they can do, usually have the lowest efficiency. Vulpisfoglia's skills in this table included the Talent 2 effect that gives 0.1 DP per second in normal stages, so you could have an idea of its impact. An increase of 0.1 is almost a whole different level in the DP efficiency race. Skill 1, the next attack deals an additional 290% of attack as arch damage and gains 1 DP. Can store 3 charges. This is a 8/4, meaning 2 stacks on deploy, auto skill. About the numbers, first of all, for module, the X base effect is considered triggered, and for efficiency, it includes that 0.1 DP per second from her talent 2. So even with that, skill 1 only has a 0.2974 DP per second efficiency, which is not looking good. On skill, Vulpisfoglia will deal 4 instances of damage. Both the normal hit and the arch damage from skill will come with the talent 1 arch damage. Does this make her a good stainless skill 3 abuser? No. Puzzle skill 1 is still the better option for that case. The problem with this skill is quite obvious. It only triggers on attack like Siege skill 2, which gets embarrassing without a target. And for the worst part, its DP efficiency is significantly lower than the standard Pioneer skill 1 Charge Gamma, when she literally has a 0.1 head start. So overall, not recommended. Skill 2 immediately gains 7 DP, deals 300% of attack as arch damage to up to 6 enemies in a Lord attack range, and slows them for 5 seconds. If an enemy is already slowed, then stuns them for 5 seconds. Can store 2 charges. This is a 20/20 manual skill. DP efficiency of the skill is 0.4302, the highest among her skills. There are some mechanics that needs explaining. First, there is a 0.2 second startup before she actually gains the DP and deals damage and CC. It also has a 1.2 seconds duration, or you can say lockout time, where she doesn't recover SP and can't use the skill again. So even when you use 2 stacks back to back, there will be a 1.4 second gap between the effects taking place. So I recommend using the second stack like 3 seconds after the first cast. The effect can hit aerial enemies, so you can stun off levitating enemies. Stunning a target that's slowed does not remove their slow status timer. This will be relevant for stun immune targets. You can use the skill without a target, which makes sense if you just want the DP. Do note that it can't damage targets blocked by her from behind, so that's different from Chen's skill 2, which can be used without a target, but can damage targets blocked from behind. Pros about the skill: it starts with 1 stack without bagpipe, high DP efficiency, and the slow and stun can buy time for her to recover via talent 2. But in turn, it also creates some bad synergies with talent 1. It does a 1-time or 2-time range attack to enemies to start the timer, but can't really follow up effectively. Enemies that are slowed or stunned also get to her slower, which wastes the timer. Next problem is a bit complicated, because the second stack takes another 20 SP. With the lack of Module Y, if you try to deploy skilled retreat playstyle like Texas skill 2, the 1 stack only gives you 7 DP. If your Vulpisfoglia is not potential 6, deploying costs you 14 or 13. Using the skill grants you 7, retreating gives you 7 or 6 back. So either way, you gain nothing. At full potential, you gain 1 DP, which is pointless. Whereas, if you look at the graph here, Texas only costs 7 DP with Module Y. If you have Bagpipe, it only takes a few seconds for Texas to use skill 2, which grants you 12 DP, retreating refunds 3, and it's not counting the 2 DP with a talent, which is a net gain of 8 or 10 DP. But since the second stack for Vulpisfoglia skill 2 is 20 SP, having Bagpipe is far from enough for filling that gap. So unfortunately, without Module Y, the only proper way of using this skill is to have her on the field, and it only shows its on-paper advantage starting from 60 seconds after deployment, as seen on the graph. There are possible synergies for this skill. Using 2 stacks for the stun can be a bit luxurious. The better option is to work with slow providers to convert the cheaper soft CC of slow into a stun hard CC. Since it's a 6-target skill, preferably you will also want multi-target slows. Possible options are D-cell binders like her daughter Suzuran's skill 2 in daily. Chain casters also work. Other individual options are Virtuosa's talent, Revenant's shadow attack from Visadel, Logos' talent, and Marcial's skill 2, more to be explored. Overall, despite being a high efficiency skill, the lane holding ability when using this skill is questionable, with just 2.5k-ish damage and a soft CC every 20 seconds. The hit and run playstyle to earn DP and do stun like Texas or Flametail skill 2 with Bagpipe is also a no-go due to the lack of Module Y and the high SP requirement. So the 1 stack on deploy without Bagpipe isn't really that appealing. Skill 3 gains 9 DP immediately, attack range +1, attack plus 110%. Attack speed gradually reduces from +180 to +0. Attack all blocked enemies, and each attack can stun the enemy for 0.2 seconds. If an enemy is defeated with the skill, gains camouflage when the skill ends, lasting until the next skill use. This is a 10/18 10 seconds auto skill. Numbers are as followed. 38k damage in 10 seconds is definitely not too shabby. DP efficiency at 0.4214 per second, a bit lower than skill 2 but still excellent by Pioneer standard. Let's start talking about damage first. It has similar physical DPH to other Vanguard lane holding skills. It comes with additional arts damage that allows her to tackle enemies with medium defense, which Pioneers usually struggles with. The 10-second duration matches up with Talent 1 well, but like we said earlier, the timer is kinda short. If she pick up enemies off skill, the timer will start early, leading to the loss of a lot of arts damage on skill. This is honestly quite painful in practice, and there's very little you can do about it. Next, there's the stun interruption. These 0.2 second stuns can interrupt enemies' attacks consistently with the big attack speed buff. Even when the attack speed almost fully decays by the end of the skill, it should still be reliable enough against most enemies given the short attack base interval of Pioneers. Having the interruption can make her trigger the self-recovery from Talent 2 even when dealing with enemies, kinda like an alternative Flametail skill 3 in terms of how they survive. I hate to kill Module X over and over, but because the skill comes with a range extension, that plus the frequent stun can make it hard for enemies to get to Vulpisfoglia and get blocked, which is quite a pity. The off-skill Camouflage allows her to stay safe from range attacks after skill for better chances at recovering. It's not super consistent though, in my opinion, since the effect is removed on the next skill use. Sometimes against range enemies beyond your range, it becomes a dilemma whether or not to use the skill. In terms of DP generation, there are quite the clear advantages. It has higher DP efficiency than other Pioneers, comes with a fast startup at ASP, so with potential 5+ Bagpipe, it's skill on deploy. You can also opt to sub Bagpipe with Lapland Altar in the same banner. Lapland's module level 3 in turn can make Vulpisfoglia attack one more time in skill 3. Compared to all other skills in this graph, she also gains all the DP on skill use instead of in a progressive manner. That plus her shot cycles would allow her to have brief DP advantages in the shorter term. Like indicated here, around 40 seconds she can have an edge over even Psylocke and Innis. Just imagine if she has module Y. That remains the only disadvantage of this skill. So in summary, Vulpisfoglia is a modernized iteration of Pioneer's concept, but unfortunately comes with a shackle. She has a set of decent talents that provides damage, survival, and DP efficiency that redefined what a Pioneer can do. Her signature skill 3 is a versatile skill that packs damage, crowd control, and burst DP generation. However, the experience using her and her competitiveness are greatly hindered by the lack of Module Y. For performance, her best applications are in daily, where despite having a higher DP than all the flag bearers and agents, it's still forgiving enough if you just want to use her. Lapland Altar plus Vulpisfoglia is a viable substitution to your accustomed flag pipe combo if you want some fresh experience or more firepower early. So, for daily rating, I would still give her a 6. She's okay on her own, but even better with one of Bagpipe or Lapland Altar. She's also less dependent on healing resources, so you get to prioritize using the DP for damage dealers or lane holders who need to warm up. She's serviceable for starting most daily stages, challenging some of the hardest early mobs like the Rod Chasers in Chapter 11 that even Mountain would struggle against. But on the flip side, she's also not a major upgrade, if at all, to the more prevalent Vanguard starts like Flagpipe and Agents in the game right now. For Advanced, I'll have her at 4. Unfortunately, all she can offer in advanced content is still the ability to engage in early fights while generating DP. In IS, Vanguards are usually not the priority due to the restraint of hope. So we tend to pick the low rarity Vanguards like Fang in IS3 and later Myrtle in IS5 due to 4 stars being free now. Agents are also the top IS picks due to their flexibility and benefit from attack speed. The more a character can get done, the more likely they will be picked in IS. That's why among 6-star Vanguards, Innis and occasionally Muses are the only ones to see use in IS. After the IS5 expansion 1, if you want to play the Lamp of Wishes strat, you would actively stay away from operators that are associated with a hand relic and a respective handbook that you don't really need because it will mess with your progress of getting the full King series relics from Wish Fulfilled. So Pioneers became especially redundant. Contingency contracts in turn is the biggest stage for Vanguards, but let's face it, it's been forever since Pioneers have any relevance in the game mode. Siege was in CC Beta because there were no better lane holders. She's also in CC 0 using her skill 3 that doesn't generate DP. The Pioneer that made it to the top most was Texas, used for her skill 2 stunts. But as the game continues to evolve, what they can offer is slowly disintegrated by standard bearers and other crowd control options. The prevalence of the 5 deployment slot risk also makes prolonged field presence less optimal. Not to mention that since the age of CCB, all the stages will start with stationary targets that are perfect targets for agents. It's so prevalent that we are starting to see the decline of standard bearers, and as a result, bagpipe along with them. So it will take a very, very dedicated stage design for Pioneers to even have the chance to perform again. The fact that her talent 2 generates 1 DP every 40 seconds under level 3 DP regen risk is not helping either. So while her skill 3 damage and cycles were great, that DP talent and the arts damage timer would have been much more impactful if there are some extra nudges to them. So for pool analysis, sorry I missed the banner again, build analysis. I think I can safely say that she's the best Pioneer overall to date. She's more hindered by the state of Pioneer in the game meta, and on top of it, not having Module Y definitely made it worse. I'm just gonna let the slides play. I've pretty much explained all of them by now. For schedule and meta, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It wouldn't matter at all if you don't have her. You're still flying using the starting strategies that you're used to. There are no stages that make her super stand out. That's gonna be it for this episode. It feels refreshing to talk about the Vanguard meta, and hopefully you get something out of it. And before I move on to Crown Slayer's episode, I will take the time to update the module side of contents, including the online sheet and another episode of module review update. One early tip would be not unlocking Crown Slayer's current module, but instead wait for her module that's coming out 6 months later, which makes her, I'm not kidding, 10 times better than before. Anyways, thank you for watching. Catch you guys in the next video. Bye bye.